I was born in Queens, New York. I lived there for the first 14 years of my life, and then we moved into Manhattan. It's funny, we really moved into Manhattan for my sister, who was a ballet dancer. But that had important ramifications for me. It introduced me to the New York Athletic Club, which is where I started wrestling. I don't know that my mom would have chosen wrestling as my sport, but as she saw how passionate I was about it and how much I liked it, how much I got out of it, I think she grew to accept it. Competitively, I started wrestling at Stuyvesant High School in Manhattan. By my junior and senior year in high school, I was winning most of my matches. I finished second in New York City twice. I went to Columbia University then, and I walked onto the wrestling team. My coach, Ron Russo, one time he mentioned me, and he mentioned that I was the 33rd best guy in the room. Unfortunately, there were only 31 guys on the team, so he was having a little fun at my expense. But I really enjoyed competing. I had a fair amount of success in college. I was all Ivy. I was really excited to be part of 3 Ivy League championship teams. Finished up my college career at Columbia, and then was lucky enough to go to business school there, where I could keep wrestling with the New York Athletic Club, and then I wrestled only Greco-Roman for them. Some ways I would have liked to have kept going in wrestling, but you reach a point where you have to get a job and join the working world, and so that's what happened to me in '85 when I graduated business school. I joined the Capital Group out of business school because a couple of reasons. One, it was a job I had become really interested in doing while I was in graduate school. Two, it was a situation where they gave you a lot of responsibility very early. I had a lot of different experiences at Capital. I continued to analyze stocks for over 20 years. Was equity research director, a global research director, served 5 years on our company's management committee. And lately I had been looking for a little change from the analytical side of things. I wanted to have a chance to be a portfolio manager. And I got the chance a few years ago, switched over to our fixed income side, where I'm managing fixed income portfolios. Wrestling has been applicable in so many ways to my business career. You have a bad day, you have a day where your investments don't do well, and what wrestling taught me is you just got to come back the next day, think it through, figure out what you did wrong, or maybe just what you did right, but why it didn't work this time, how to do it better, and just keep on going. I met my wife, Avery, in 1986. We were married in 1988. My wife and children are the very best part of my life. Whenever you have a hard day and you come home, seeing your children, getting a hug from your children, or your wife having to deal with and think about their issues and what's going on in their life, I think it brings you back. It brings you out of whatever funk you may be in after a hard day at work. Well, one of the things that I'm very proud of, I'm glad I had the opportunity to do it. I'm glad I had the ability and the financial capability to do, has been to provide endowments for the Columbia Wrestling program.
Andy Barth's support of Columbia Wrestling has just been absolutely tremendous. Really invaluable.
Because of his generous support and his love for the sport of wrestling, we were able to create 2 endowments, which the Columbia Wrestling program was really bolstered by.
Every program in the country would be lucky to have an alum like Andy. We're certainly happy to have him. He really, he really is the backbone of Columbia Wrestling.
I think that wrestling is something, unfortunately, as a sport that is under attack in a lot of ways. And I had often thought when I was younger, if there was a way that I could somehow preserve and protect and ensure that Columbia would have a wrestling program, I would do it. We're very fortunate that Dave and Mike Barry have elected to endow the other assistant coaching position. So we're currently sitting there with some endowments for the program, 2 endowed coaching positions, a 3rd one in the works, and now I feel very satisfied that we have been able to protect, strengthen, and ensure that Columbia will have a wrestling program going forward. You know, wrestling is a tremendous sport for all young people. Teaches you discipline, hard work. That discipline and hard work can reward you with good results and success. And we've seen through the efforts of people like Al and Chris Bevilacqua and Mike Novogratz, the spawning, the birth of these Beat the Streets programs. And I really look to them as an example to try to do the same thing in Los Angeles.
Andy wants to do some great things with a program called Beat the Streets Los Angeles. We've started it. It's in motion. I'll be moving out to California to help him out with the program. And he's just one of those guys that really wants to do a lot of good things and help a lot of youth and disadvantaged youth in particular.
Over a several-year period, I'd like to see us have 2 or 3 dozen middle schools with wrestling programs in the Los Angeles area. And I think it's just an important way to help ensure the future of wrestling, attract attention, bring in people and sources that otherwise wouldn't get attracted to wrestling, and hopefully we'll be building a greater and greater popularity for the sport. One of the things that I had a real pleasure to be involved with was the presentation of a Greek artifact. That Greek artifact is one of the earliest known, actually it's the earliest known written coaching manual, and of course it's about wrestling. Wrestling has been around for thousands of years. So for me to now be a part of that legacy, to be a part of that culture, to have been able to help, contribute, and be a part of the team, it's tremendously meaningful, and it's tremendously satisfying, and it's also very, very humbling.